When Raquel Welch stepped into her now iconic fur bikini to battle dinosaurs in 1 million years BC, she likely had no idea that the role would define her image and bring her both fame and challenges for years to come. Born Jo Raquel Tejada on September 5, 1940 in Chicago, Illinois, Welch came from a culturally rich background. Her mother was English and the daughter of a renowned architect, while her father, originally from La Paz, Bolivia, was an aeronautical engineer. Although her family had intellectual and political ties, her cousin later became Bolivia's first female president, Raquel had little interest in politics. Her passion was dance. At the age of 2, Welch moved with her family, her parents and 2 siblings, from Chicago to San Diego, California. By the time she was 7, she was already training in ballet, dedicating herself to the art with the discipline and determination that would later define her career. For a decade, she pursued ballet with dreams of becoming a professional dancer. However, at 17, she received heartbreaking news. Her teacher told her that she didn't have the right body type for ballet. The rejection was crushing, but rather than letting it defeat her, she quickly pivoted to something she did have a natural advantage in. Welch soon found success in the world of beauty pageants. As a teenager, she entered and won numerous competitions, earning titles such as Miss Photogenic and Miss Contour. While still in high school, she was crowned Miss La Jolla, and when the San Diego Fair came around, she won the title of Miss San Diego, the fairest of the fair. With each victory, she became more aware of the power her beauty held. As she matured into a striking young woman, she began to explore how she could use her looks to carve out a future for herself. At just 15 years old, Welch experienced what she described as love at first sight. She met James Welch, the man who would later become her first husband, and from the moment she saw him, she believed they were destined to be together. In her memoir, she recalled, "From the first minute I saw him, I secretly knew that I was destined to have his babies." Their high school romance was intense, but as with many young love stories, it wasn't meant to last. Despite her deep feelings for him, their relationship would take a different turn in the years ahead, proving that even first loves don't always lead to a fairy tale ending. Raquel Welch's first love seemed like something out of a classic high school romance. She was a popular cheerleader, full of energy and ambition, while James Welch was a football player, an All-American, pairing on the surface. But beneath the idealized image, they were complete opposites. Raquel was outgoing, intelligent, and highly driven, while James was quiet, reserved, and had little interest in academics. He eventually dropped out of school, further widening the gap between them. Their relationship was a whirlwind of highs and lows, but their story was far from over. Although Welch briefly broke up with James, their connection proved too strong to ignore, and they soon found their way back to each other. This time, they made a bold, life-changing decision. In 1959, Raquel, barely out of her teens, took a leap of faith. She dropped out of college and eloped with James to Las Vegas. Their spontaneous wedding was an act of youthful rebellion, but while it may have felt romantic at the time, it came at a cost. Her parents, who had high hopes for her future, were deeply disappointed by her impulsive decision. But little did they know, this was only the beginning of an even bigger shift in Raquel's life. Raquel and James didn't waste any time starting a family. That same year, they welcomed their first child, a son named Damon. At just 19 years old, Raquel was suddenly navigating the challenges of marriage and motherhood, a reality she later admitted she wasn't fully prepared for. In her own words, it was a painfully young age, and the pressures of raising a child while still trying to find her place in the world put an immense strain on her. By 1964, her marriage to James had unraveled, and they separated. However, that wasn't the only challenge she faced. 2 years after having Damon, Raquel gave birth to a daughter, Raquel Welch. But even with 2 children, her marriage continued to deteriorate. Instead of bringing them closer together, their growing family only highlighted their differences. James had his own vision of what their future should look like, while Raquel had ambitions that extended far beyond the role of a traditional housewife. Their conflicting priorities made reconciliation impossible, and the couple ultimately divorced. With her marriage over and her future uncertain, Raquel found herself at a crossroads. She had spent years fulfilling roles expected of her, wife, mother, beauty queen, but now she was ready to reclaim her own dreams. Determined to build a new life for herself and her children, she set her sights on something entirely different: Hollywood. Looking for a fresh start, Raquel Welch packed up her 2 young children and moved to Dallas, Texas. It was a difficult transition, but she was determined to make things work. To support her family, she took on whatever job she could find, working as a model for the luxury department store Neiman Marcus and serving cocktails at a local bar. Despite her efforts, life in Dallas wasn't easy, and she soon realized that staying there wouldn't bring her any closer to the future she envisioned. With dreams of making it in show business, she made the bold decision to relocate once again, this time to Los Angeles, where opportunity and uncertainty awaited her in equal measure. Once in LA, Welch began knocking on studio doors, hoping for her big break. Auditions were tough and competition was fierce, but she soon met someone who would play a major role in shaping her career. His name was Patrick Curtis, a former child actor who had since transitioned into producing and talent management. Like many men who crossed paths with Welch, Curtis was captivated by her beauty. But unlike most, he saw more than just a pretty face. He believed she had the potential to become a true Hollywood star. His first piece of career advice? Keep her ex-husband's last name. Curtis had a clear vision for Welch's rise to fame. He wanted to mold her into the ultimate Hollywood seductress. But in the 1960s, the industry still clung to rigid beauty standards, and Curtis worried that Welch's Latin-sounding birth name, Tejada, might hold her back. At the time, studios preferred actresses who fit a more conventional American image, and a name that hinted at her Bolivian heritage could have made landing roles more difficult. Welch understood the challenges of navigating Hollywood's biases, so she agreed to keep the name that had already become familiar. And with that decision, the reinvention of Raquel Welch truly began. In 1965, 2 major events reshaped her life and career. First, she landed her first featured role in A Swingin' Summer, a lighthearted beach movie filled with music and youthful energy. Though the film itself wasn't groundbreaking, it gave Welch valuable screen time and a chance to showcase her charisma. Around the same time, she received a major honor. She was named one of the Hollywood Deb Stars, a prestigious title given to promising young actresses on the rise. The Hollywood Deb Stars event was a major stepping stone for new talent, offering exposure and industry recognition. When Life magazine featured Welch in a photo spread celebrating the Deb Stars, it generated a wave of attention. Suddenly, people were taking notice, and Hollywood was beginning to realize that Raquel Welch was more than just a beautiful face. She was a star in the making. Becoming a Hollywood Deb Star gave Raquel Welch the momentum she needed to take her career to the next level. She was soon recommended to 20th Century Fox, and with Patrick Curtis's help, she secured a contract with the studio. However, before they were ready to cast her in a film, they insisted that she make one significant change: her name. While the studio was fine with Welch, they weren't so keen on Raquel. Executives claimed that it didn't roll off the tongue easily and suggested she adopted a more conventional Hollywood name, Debbie. Despite being relatively new to the industry, Welch refused to comply. She had already made the decision to keep her ex-husband's surname for career purposes, but she wasn't about to erase her unique first name as well. She stood her ground, keeping Raquel Welch as her professional identity for the rest of her life, a choice that would later make her one of the most recognizable names in Hollywood. Her first major film under 20th Century Fox was the 1966 sci-fi adventure Fantastic Voyage. The film followed a team of scientists who are shrunk to microscopic size and injected into the body of an injured scientist in a desperate attempt to save his life. While the film's groundbreaking special effects were the main draw, Welch's presence on screen was impossible to ignore. As the only female lead, she was undeniably the film's eye candy, a role that, as it turned out, led to some unexpected challenges on set. One particular scene required the miniaturized scientists to remove antibodies that were attacking their bodies. To do this, the actors had to physically grab at each other to pull the antibodies off. However, when it came to Welch, none of the actors wanted to be the one to reach toward her chest. As a result, while the other cast members successfully rid themselves of the clinging antibodies, Welch was left standing with her chest still covered in them. Realizing the awkward situation, the director halted filming and firmly instructed the actors to treat Welch like everyone else and remove all of the antibodies, including those on her chest. This, of course, led to the opposite problem. The actors who had previously hesitated suddenly lunged forward all at once. The moment became infamous among the cast, but for Welch it was just another day of being the most captivating presence in the room. Her undeniable beauty may have made some of her co-stars nervous, but one man in particular seemed completely unaffected, Irish actor Stephen Boyd, who had previously starred in Ben-Hur. While filming Fantastic Voyage, Welch found herself infatuated with Boyd and decided to make her feelings known. To her surprise, he wasn't interested. Whether Boyd was blind to her charms or had personal reasons for rejecting her, Welch never forgot the sting of his polite but firm refusal. However, while Boyd may not have fallen for her, the rest of the world did. Fantastic Voyage became a massive hit, catapulting Welch into international stardom. From that moment on, she was no longer just a rising actress. She was a full-fledged sex symbol and one of Hollywood's hottest new stars. Boyd may have been the one that got away, but as Welch would soon learn, he wasn't the biggest romantic disappointment she would face. As Raquel Welch's career skyrocketed, so did her relationship with Patrick Curtis, the man who had carefully guided her rise to fame. Their professional partnership had transformed her from an aspiring actress into a household name, but their bond extended beyond business. On Valentine's Day in 1967, Welch and Curtis made it official, tying the knot in what seemed like the perfect Hollywood power couple union. Now, Curtis wasn't just managing Welch's career, he was also her husband. However, as Welch was about to learn, her next film would define her legacy in ways she never anticipated, bringing both fame and lasting challenges. With 20th Century Fox now boasting a rising star on its roster, the studio's next move was somewhat unexpected. Rather than headlining a high-budget Hollywood film, Welch was loaned out to Hammer Studios in the UK to star in 1 Million Years BC. The film was a prehistoric adventure that imagined a world where humans and dinosaurs coexisted, but despite its fantasy premise, it wasn't the story that made headlines. It was Raquel Welch's costume. Because Welch played a cave woman, her character only had one outfit. The costume designers wanted something that felt somewhat realistic for the prehistoric setting, so they fashioned a bikini out of deerskin. At the same time, They also needed to create a striking, provocative look that would capture audience attention. The result? A now legendary fur bikini that would become one of the most iconic images in pop culture history. The film itself may have been a campy, low-dialogue action spectacle, but Welch's promotional posters, featuring her in that unforgettable outfit, sent young men across the globe into a frenzy. Welch's impact wasn't just limited to starry-eyed teenage boys. The New York Times took note of her undeniable screen presence, describing her as a marvelous breathing monument to womankind. Practically overnight, she became the ultimate pinup girl of the 1960s, a title previously held by bombshells like Marilyn Monroe and Brigitte Bardot. Years later, Time magazine compiled a list of the most iconic bikinis in pop culture history, and Welch's prehistoric two-piece made the top 10. The image of her standing against a rocky backdrop in 1 million years BC had become so legendary that it continued to be referenced decades later. Without a doubt, this film had cemented her status as a global sex symbol. Even though 1 million years BC made Raquel Welch a global sensation, she never took the film too seriously. She later dismissed it as that silly dinosaur movie, acknowledging that while it made her famous, it didn't exactly showcase her acting abilities. Despite her feelings about the film, her image in that fur bikini became one of the most enduring visuals in pop culture history. It even appeared as a symbol of hope and beauty in The Shawshank Redemption, proving that Welch's impact extended far beyond the prehistoric fantasy she had once brushed off. But Welch wanted more. She didn't want to be remembered just for posing in a skimpy outfit and grunting like a cavewoman. She was determined to prove that she was more than just a sex symbol. Fortunately, a real acting opportunity was just around the corner. In 1966, Welch traveled to Italy to take on a film that required actual acting, free from over-the-top special effects or elaborate costumes. The movie, Shoot Louder, Louder, I Don't Understand, was a quirky comedy drama about a sculptor, and Welch was set to star alongside Marcello Mastroianni, one of Italy's most legendary actors. It was a bold move for Welch, as it was her first role that didn't involve science fiction or fantasy elements. She hoped it would prove that she had real talent, but things didn't go quite as planned. When Shoot Louder, Louder, I Don't Understand hit theaters, critics were merciless. The Los Angeles Times described it as being as stale as a bad piece of pizza, while the Chicago Tribune dismissed it as a disastrous dud. It was a disappointing experience, but there was one silver lining. Her co-star Mastroianni had kind words about her performance. He remarked that Welch had a natural talent for comedy, an encouraging endorsement from one of Europe's most respected actors. With that in mind, Welch decided to stay in Italy a little longer to see what other opportunities might arise. While she was still in Europe, MGM came calling with an offer for an American film that needed a leading lady. The project was the biggest bundle of them all, a light-hearted heist movie co-starring Robert Wagner and Edward G. Robinson. Welch, still relatively new to major Hollywood productions, was eager to prove herself. However, she quickly gained a reputation for her diva-like behavior on set. Apparently, she developed a habit of showing up late every single day. This didn't sit well with Edward G. Robinson, a veteran actor known for playing tough guys in classic gangster films. Eventually, he'd had enough. Frustrated with her tardiness, he confronted her, telling her off in no uncertain terms. Welch, caught off guard, immediately burst into tears and promised to be more professional. The only problem? She didn't keep that promise. The day after Edward G. Robinson scolded Raquel Welch for her constant tardiness on the set of the biggest bundle of them all, she showed up late again. To her credit, Her role required extensive time in hair and makeup. After all, she was once again the film's designated eye candy. However, that wasn't the only issue frustrating the production team. The film's director had a much bigger concern. Welch didn't know her lines. Growing increasingly irritated, he gave her a blunt warning. If she didn't improve, he would minimize her presence in the film. He threatened to cut her close-ups and exclude her from as many scenes as possible. Realizing the seriousness of the situation, Welch quickly adjusted her behavior. She started showing more discipline on set, determined to prove that she was more than just a pretty face. But would it be enough to secure her place in Hollywood? After working with Welch on the biggest bundle of them all, Edward G. Robinson didn't hold back when speaking to the press. While he acknowledged her stunning looks and her impressive publicity machine, he made it clear that beauty alone wouldn't be enough to sustain a lasting career. He famously remarked, "A body will only take you so far." His words were a challenge, one that Welch was about to take head-on. Her next opportunity was Fathom, 1967, a 20th Century Fox spy comedy filmed in Spain. This time, Welch wasn't just a glamorous side character. She was the lead. Playing a fearless skydiver tasked with recovering a lost nuclear device, she was given the chance to prove that she could carry a film on her own. While her beauty remained a focal point, the real test was whether she had the acting skills to match. Audiences and critics alike would be watching closely. Unfortunately, Fathom didn't do much to silence her critics. In fact, legendary film reviewer Roger Ebert did something almost unheard of. He gave it 0 stars. The Los Angeles Times was just as dismissive, comparing Welch to Maria Montez, a 1940s actress known for her striking looks but limited acting abilities. On set, the criticism was even harsher. Crew members reportedly mocked Welch, referring to her as a dumb broad or a drum majorette, implying that she was all style and no substance. However, not everyone saw Welch as just another pretty face. Peter Medak, the film's second unit director, noticed something different. Unlike many actors who ignored the filmmaking process beyond their scenes, Welch took the time to watch the rushes after each shoot. He observed that she was studying her performance, trying to learn and improve with each take. While others dismissed her, Medak saw potential. He believed that, with the right opportunities, Raquel Welch could become much more than just a Hollywood sex symbol. There were big opportunities ahead for Raquel Welch, but Valley of the Dolls wasn't one of them. When 20th Century Fox began adapting the best-selling novel about young women battling addiction and fame, Welch was eager to land the lead role. However, the studio had different plans. They wanted her for Jennifer North, a character who relies on her physical appeal to get ahead. Welch, determined to move beyond roles that objectified her, refused to accept the part. She was working hard to establish herself as a serious actress, and playing another beautiful woman defined by her body was exactly what she was trying to avoid. Fox, unwilling to budge, offered the role to Sharon Tate instead. While Valley of the Dolls would later become a cult classic, Welch had no regrets about walking away. She was holding out for roles that would allow her to prove herself as more than just a Hollywood bombshell. Instead of Valley of the Dolls, Welch took on a role in Bedazzled, 1967, a British comedy starring Dudley Moore and Peter Cook. If her goal was to escape being typecast, this wasn't the project to do it. She played Lust, one of the 7 deadly sins, and despite her limited screen time, she appeared for only about 7 minutes. She dominated the film's marketing. Welch's image was plastered across posters and promotional materials, reinforcing the very thing she had been trying to escape. But even though Bedazzled didn't do much to redefine her career, bigger and better things were just around the corner. Welch's next project, Bandolero, 1968, gave her a chance to work alongside 2 Hollywood legends, James Stewart, and Dean Martin. The Western was a departure from her previous roles, allowing her to showcase more than just her looks. For most of the film, she managed to keep her clothes on, which was a refreshing change after being cast in one overly sexualized role after another. During filming, Welch learned an important lesson about fame from James Stewart. When she complained about the constant autograph requests, Stewart gave her some blunt but valuable advice. Sign them. Those people are paying your salary. Welch took his words to heart, and from that point on, she made it a point to always sign autographs for fans, no matter how inconvenient it was. Despite its star-studded cast, Bandolero was only a modest success. However, Welch later reflected that she was proud of her performance and relieved that she wasn't running around half-naked for once. Stewart, known for his dry humor, gave his own assessment of Welch's performance. Though in true Hollywood fashion, his comment was more about her appearance than her acting. With a knowing nod to her famous curves, he quipped that Welch would stack up all right. For her next film, Raquel Welch found herself starring opposite one of Hollywood's most legendary entertainers, Frank Sinatra. The movie, Lady in Cement, 1968, was a comedy thriller featuring Sinatra as private detective Tony Rome and Welch as his glamorous co-star. The studio heavily marketed Welch's appearance, even featuring her in a bathing suit on the movie poster, with her measurements listed alongside her name. However, despite the star power, the film flopped at the box office, failing to bring in profits for 20th Century Fox. Critics weren't much kinder. Variety offered a particularly backhanded compliment, saying that Welch adds her limited but beauteous contribution to the film. Once again, she found herself reduced to a pretty face rather than being recognized for her acting ability. It seemed that no matter who she worked with, whether it was Dean Martin, James Stewart, or Frank Sinatra, she couldn't land a hit film, or more importantly, earn the professional respect she craved. In 1969, Welch took on another Western, but this time she stirred up controversy. Starring in 100 Rifles, she shared an interracial love scene with Jim Brown, a groundbreaking moment in cinema at the time. While interracial relationships were rarely depicted in mainstream Hollywood films, Welch and Brown's steamy on-screen chemistry drew both praise and backlash. But that wasn't the only moment in the film that got people talking. In one particular scene, Welch's character takes an outdoor shower as a distraction tactic to divert the attention of some soldiers. The director pushed for Welch to perform the scene nude, believing it would make for a more provocative moment. However, Welch refused, knowing full well that a topless shower scene would overshadow the entire film. Standing her ground, she ensured the scene was filmed on her terms. Determined to prove her acting chops, Welch took on one of her riskiest roles in Myra Breckinridge, 1970, a film adaptation of Gore Vidal's controversial novel. In the film, she played a transgender woman, believing that such a bold, dramatic role would finally earn her the respect she had been chasing. However, her casting wasn't based on her talent. It was about her looks. The film's producer famously explained his reasoning by saying, if a man were going to become a woman, he would want to become the most beautiful woman in the world. He would become Raquel Welch. The decision to cast her had more to do with spectacle than storytelling, and unfortunately, the final product was nothing short of a disaster. Beyond being savaged by critics, Myra Breckinridge was plagued by behind-the-scenes drama, much of it involving Welch's co-star, Mae West. West, a screen legend known for her diva-like demands, had a bizarre clause in her contract stating that she alone was allowed to wear black and white dresses in the film. Welch, either unaware or unfazed by this rule, showed up for a scene wearing a black dress with a white ruffle. West lost her temper, complaining to the producers and demanding that Welch change her outfit. Rather than backing down, Welch made a subtle but defiant move. She dyed the white ruffle pale blue, knowing that, on camera, it would still appear white. The feud between the two actresses became legendary, with West and Welch becoming bitter rivals. But for all the tension between them, they managed to find a common enemy, one of the film's newest cast members. Even though Welch was struggling to find the serious acting roles she longed for, she remained one of the most talked about women of the decade. Playboy magazine even crowned her the most desired woman of the 1970s, a title she accepted as a compliment. She also had the opportunity to take the stage at the Academy Awards, presenting multiple times throughout the decade, and even accepting an Oscar on behalf of Goldie Hawn. However, despite these moments in the spotlight, the focus remained on her looks rather than her talent. In 1970, CBS capitalized on her star power, producing an elaborate television special called Raquel. The variety-style program was filmed in exotic locations and featured big-name stars like Tom Jones and Bob Hope. It gave Welch the chance to showcase her versatility, singing, dancing, and even reciting poetry. The special was a success, proving she had more to offer than just sex appeal. Still, Welch wasn't satisfied with simply being a television personality. She wanted to be taken seriously as a Hollywood actress. Determined to take control of her career, Welch and her husband-turned-manager, Patrick Curtis, launched their own production company, Kurtwell, a not-so-elegant combination of their last names. By having her own company, Welch hoped to create opportunities that highlighted her acting talent rather than just her appearance. One of the first projects to come out of Kurtwell was Hanny Calder, 1971, a Western with a rare twist, a female lead. In the film, Welch played Hanny, a woman seeking revenge after being attacked and left for dead by outlaws. Though the film didn't achieve major success at the time, it gained a cult following in later years and even inspired Quentin Tarantino when he created Kill Bill. Unfortunately, Hanny Calder didn't bring Welch the recognition she had hoped for, and despite her efforts to reshape her image, she still struggled to escape the sex symbol label. As her career faced challenges, her personal life also took a hit. By 1972, her marriage to Patrick Curtis had come to an end, marking yet another major change in her life. Newly single for the first time in years, Welch wasted no time re-entering the dating scene, and when she did, she set her sights high on Joe Namath, America's hottest bachelor and a legendary NFL quarterback. Namath, known as much for his playboy reputation as for his skills on the field, was famous for his revolving door of girlfriends. But for Raquel Welch, he was willing to put his womanizing ways on hold, at least for a while. The two had an on-again, off-again romance throughout the 1970s. However, after 2 divorces, Welch wasn't in any rush to become a wife again. There was one exception, The Last of Sheila, 1973, a well-received murder mystery with an all-star ensemble cast. Welch played Alice Wood, a glamorous but self-absorbed actress whom she initially believed was based on Anne Margaret. The film's writers, Stephen Sondheim and Anthony Perkins, were reportedly too afraid to tell Welch the truth. The reason? Alice Wood wasn't exactly a flattering portrayal. While Welch assumed she was playing a fictionalized version of another Hollywood star, she was, in fact, stepping into a role that mirrored her own public persona, one that painted her as temperamental, demanding, and difficult to work with. The irony was lost on her at the time, but The Last of Sheila ended up being one of the few critically acclaimed films in her 1970s filmography. As the 1980s rolled in, Welch attempted a shift in her career, seeking out more serious roles in television. One such opportunity came with The Legend of Walks Far Woman, in which she played an indigenous woman in the 19th century. However, before the film could even reach audiences, NBC hesitated to air it, fearing it was a disaster. When the movie finally did premiere, the reception was lukewarm. The New York Times delivered a particularly underwhelming critique, stating, "There is nothing dreadfully wrong with Miss Welch's performance. It's just that the entire story is boring." While it wasn't exactly glowing praise, it also wasn't the harsh criticism she had come to expect. While Welch was fighting to reinvent her career, her personal life was also undergoing a major transformation. In 1980, she married André Weinfeld, a French-American producer, director, and screenwriter. However, their relationship quickly became the subject of media scrutiny, particularly in France, where the press cruelly dubbed them Beauty and the Beast, taking jabs at Weinfeld's looks compared to Welch's stunning appearance. Despite the criticism, the couple didn't let public opinion affect them. On July 5, 1980, they exchanged vows in an intimate beach wedding in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico. Now, happily married, Welch set her sights on a new challenge, Broadway. In an unexpected move, Welch took to the stage, stepping into one of the most intimidating roles of her career. She was chosen to temporarily replace Lauren Bacall in the Broadway musical Woman of the Year, filling in for 2 weeks while Bacall was on vacation. Considering Bacall's commanding stage presence, it was a daunting role to take on, but Welch delivered. Critics praised her performance, and audiences embraced her in the part. The production was so impressed that they invited her back the following year for a full 6-month run. It seemed like Welch had finally found her footing, proving herself as more than just a Hollywood sex symbol. However, just when it seemed things were turning around, controversy struck again. In 1982, Welch landed a major role in the highly anticipated film Cannery Row, opposite Nick Nolte. This was her chance to showcase her dramatic abilities in a high-profile project. However, she quickly ran into trouble on set. She refused to attend early morning rehearsals, a decision that frustrated the film's producers. Eventually, they fired her and replaced her with Deborah Winger, a younger rising star at the time. Welch was furious and wasted no time in taking legal action. She sued MGM for wrongful termination, claiming she had been unfairly dismissed due to age discrimination. The case dragged on, but in the end, she won, securing a settlement of over $10 million. While she emerged victorious in court, the damage had been done. Her reputation in Hollywood took a serious hit. Directors and producers now saw her as difficult, and the industry, already favoring younger actresses, was hesitant to take a chance on her. Though Cannery Row itself was a commercial failure, Welch's public battle with the studio overshadowed the film's misfortune. After her legal battle with MGM, Raquel Welch found herself facing an unfortunate consequence. She'd become too controversial for many Hollywood producers. With fewer film offers coming her way, she did what many actresses before her had done. She reinvented herself by tapping into the lucrative beauty and wellness industry. Using her own name and image as a brand, Welch released the Raquel Welch Beauty and Fitness Program, a book that shared her secrets for staying youthful and glamorous. Her husband at the time, André Weinfeld, worked as her photographer, capturing images that showcased her timeless beauty. The book was a success, and Welch soon expanded into selling wigs, jewelry, and skincare products, capitalizing on her status as an enduring beauty icon. Years later, in 2007, MAC Cosmetics selected her as the new face of their brand, further cementing her reputation as a timeless sex symbol. The company described her as strong and wild, yet sultry and exotic, a description that perfectly encapsulated the persona she had carefully crafted over the years. And as it turned out, that undeniable allure also made it easy for her to find love again. By 1992, her marriage to Weinfeld had come to an end. 4 years later, she met Richard Palmer, a man from an entirely different world. He wasn't a Hollywood producer, but a pizza mogul owning Mulberry Street Pizzeria. The two dated for 3 years before tying the knot in 1999. However, some speculated that Palmer may have had his own reasons for being so thrilled about their marriage. He once admitted that being married to Welch had its perks, particularly when it came to scoring prime tickets for major boxing matches. But whatever benefits he gained from being Mr. Raquel Welch didn't last long. Their marriage ended in 2003, and from that point on, Palmer had to start securing his own tickets. Despite her reputation as a Hollywood bombshell, Welch had always insisted that her off-screen life was much quieter than people assumed. And when the end of her life came, it reflected that same understated nature. After a brief illness, she passed away peacefully at her home in Los Angeles on February 15, 2023, at the age of 82. Her daughter, Tanny Welch, continued the family's entertainment legacy, appearing in films and television shows, and, much like her mother, gracing the pages of Playboy magazine. While she never reached the same level of superstardom, her career carried on the Welch name in Hollywood. Looking back, Welch's career could have taken a very different path. In her early days, she auditioned for various roles in TV and film, including a small part alongside Elvis Presley. But one of her biggest missed opportunities was a role in Gilligan's Island. Producers had her audition, not for the glamorous Ginger, as one might assume, but for the sweet girl next door, Mary Ann. It's impossible to know how her career would have unfolded had she landed the role, but it's safe to say that Gilligan's Island would have taken her in a completely different direction. Instead, she carved out her own space in Hollywood, becoming one of the most famous sex symbols of her time. Of course, not everyone she worked with was a fan. On the set of The Last of Sheila, Welch reportedly had a meltdown, throwing props and making life difficult for the cast and crew. Ian McShane, one of her co-stars, suggested that she simply assumed people wouldn't like her. But James Mason didn't sugarcoat his feelings, describing Welch as a selfish, ill-mannered, inconsiderate actress. Despite her undeniable beauty and star power, Welch never became a Bond girl, though many mistakenly assumed she did. Whether it was due to her reputation for being difficult or simply because she wasn't interested in playing a sidekick to 007, the fact remains. She didn't need James Bond to make her a legend. Raquel Welch's journey was one of fame, beauty, and undeniable talent, but also of struggles, heartbreak, and challenges that shaped her life both on and off screen. Though she faced controversies, personal losses, and career setbacks, her legacy as a trailblazing actress and an enduring Hollywood icon remains intact. From her early days as a rising star to her final years away from the spotlight, Welch left behind a legacy that will continue to inspire for generations to come. What's your favorite Raquel Welch performance? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more untold Hollywood stories.